Okay, we should start. So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today at this Aragon Professional Hub seminar. Our today's seminar title is "Going Back to School: Getting into a Graduate Program." And to talk about this topic, we have two expert academics. One of whom oversees an MBA program, and another oversees a graduate program in computation in their respective institute. So we have today is Davide Bolchini, who is a professor of human-computer interaction at the Indiana University School of Informatics and Computing, where he also serves as founding chair for the Department of Human-Centered Computing. And we also have with us is Dan Beck, who is the academic director for MBA programs, and also the associate professor of marketing at the Daniels College of Business of the University of Denver. And Dan just said that he just got back from his sabbatical, so this is a much good transition for him. So we at Aragon Professional Hub are delighted to have both of them as our speakers. And those of you who are not familiar with Aragon Professional Hub, it is an effort by some of us answering the need of many, including ourselves, as well as others in professional development, whether it's entering workplace or breaking into a new industry or skills development. Aragon can provide resources to allow everyone to learn, share, and grow in their careers. All Aragon's events and services are powered by volunteers, and it's free of charge. If you're interested in being a mentee or want to hit the call of the hour to help others and become a mentor, please let us know. We'll be excited to have you as part of our community. So thank you once again for joining us. With that said, I'd like to point out a few logistics of tonight's event. In this Zoom meeting, everyone else other than the speakers will be muted throughout the calls. There will be a Q&A session after both the speakers' conversation. And if you have any questions, please write them at the chat window and we'll convey them to the speakers for their response. So without further delay, let's start our evening's proceedings. And I'd like to first ask Davide Bolchini to talk about his take on graduate school.
Thank you, Razib. Thank you, everybody. I wanted to thank Aragon and all the volunteers for organizing these seminars. Also everybody who is also serving as mentors. I've enjoyed so far the participation to Aragon, so I really appreciate everybody's effort in helping each other. So Razib asked you to talk about 15, 20 minutes about the areas of the degree programs that I oversee. Let me briefly share my screen so I can share some material. Hopefully you can see. I'll put it in a slideshow to see if it works. I have put together some material. These are initial kind of notes or pointers. There is a lot to talk about different programs in the area of computational sciences, data sciences, informatics, human-computer interaction. I just wanted to give some pointers, and then hopefully it is an interactive session. Feel free to ask me questions throughout, and we can go from there. I work as a professor of human-computer interaction at Indiana University in Indianapolis. In my department, we have several programs in the broader area of human-centered computing. These are some examples of programs that we have that you might find also in other institutions in the broader area of applied computing. I know Aragon has covered already several seminars covering the areas of data science, so I won't repeat much what has been covered there, but just wanted to highlight some typical degree program at the graduate level, so master and PhDs in the area of human-computer interaction, data science, digital media, health informatics, biohealth informatics, library information sciences. These are the graduate program we have in our school. And these are some example of the kind of different disciplines within the larger area of informatics and computing. instead of kind of providing more abstract information, I wanted to start with some example of student journeys and then go from there. I just wanted to show some example of what some students in my lab in our school have been doing, and especially the variety of the background and work experience they came into a graduate program. And so these are all, you know, real students that have been through our labs. We have, for example, a student who had a bachelor in English and then did some 3-4 years of freelance work, consulting in writing, copywriting for the web. And then he came to our master program in human-computer interaction, and now he's a senior user experience designer at Eli Lilly, which is a pharmaceutical company in town, and he's working especially in the design of the connected device and interfaces for diabetic products. We have, of course, the traditional path of a student with the background in engineering or information technology, a bachelor degree, and who through our program then, after 2 years of studying the program upon graduation, became a UX designer at Salesforce, which is a large marketing system ecosystem company. Other different backgrounds, also people with the general bachelor degree, did some marketing work through a master program in HCI. Then they're now lead designer at Blackboard, which is a large e-learning platform. Another area, of course, people who have a background in design, broadly defined, could be both in the industrial design area or in the graphic design area, on visual communication, who through a master degree in human-computer interaction, then they landed a position at Google, and she's now a UX researcher in the Google products. Other students come from a journalist background with some work experience in writing or as graphic designer. He's now a UX director at Salesforce. So these are some of the examples to show the variety of possible background for which a master degree in an applied area such as human-computer interaction could be useful to really advance their career, open up new opportunities in the user experience economy, and really advance the opportunity. These are, I won't read, these are just other examples for students in my lab. We have also people with engineering background who went into the applied data science or data science program, became data analyst, or with a background in psychology, so in the social sciences, or applied social sciences, with a master in HCI, who is now lead interaction designer at Adobe, or other at Amazon or VMware. So students come from a variety of paths, and a master in human-computer interaction is an example of a program in a computational area which is very interdisciplinary, and basically is open to people coming from both the engineering IT on one hand, a design background, and social sciences. So from these three paths, basically, a program in HCI or applied data science then open the space to work in a high demand position in the industry, whether it is large companies or it is more local companies, or could be digital marketing companies that basically call for a variety of position titles, which are many of them have synonyms, called interaction designers or business analysts or user experience designers or product designers, which have to do with basically understanding the needs of the target users and the needs of the stakeholder, and then working collaboratively in team through designing the interaction with the digital product at various levels. Working both on the user interface per se, working more on the conceptual design, the architecture of the user experience, or working more on the front-end engineering of the system that interfaces with the customers. Why a master or PhD degree in general? I think in our area, and this could be common in other areas, I see a master degree as an opportunity for those who really want to gain a professional mastery of skills which are new, in demand, and advanced, and really capture where the industry is going, depending typically on whether you are going for a part-time master program or full-time master program. Typically, a master program is a 3-semester commitment or 4 semesters commitment in our areas. And this allows, upon graduation, to land a position that, depending then on the area, may have different both salaries, different benefits, and different also career paths based on the organization. On the other hand, the master degree, the PhD degree in our areas, typically, I would define it as a degree for those who are really interested in research. Research as defined as the search for new knowledge, how to push the boundary of the discipline with either new methods or new theories or new techniques that can really be disseminated through peer review publications in the academic community. The two kinds of degrees in our area often overlap for the first 3 or 4 semesters. So when you start a master degree, for example, in data science or in HCI or in informatics, you might have the opportunity to take courses that then can transfer into a PhD program. And so even if the PhD program is typically 5 years, the first 1 or 2 years, oftentimes, the students take courses that are also together with the master students. And of course, for the PhD program, there are different models. There are students who take it part-time because they're already working, and that's definitely a possibility. Or they're taking it full-time, meaning that they come to the university and they, alongside the coursework, they do research assistantship. They work in the research labs with the faculty, and so that's how they support their studies. When you look at specific career prospects, besides some of the examples I've shown, in general, computational science degree programs really open the possibility to land in-demand job positions. This is just a snapshot from an example from my website from the master in HCI. A salary in the Midwest of maybe more than $80,000 upon graduation, which is typically probably 20-25% more than a salary with a bachelor degree. And this is typically for the computational sciences, a salary differential. And also the opportunity to really not only land a job upon graduation, almost guarantee, of course, it's never guaranteed, but with high probability. And also there is the opportunity during the course of study to integrate in the coursework professional internships. Could be 1 semester or 2 semesters to a company, who can then be transformed the internship into a full-time position, or can augment the portfolio to be more competitive when interviewing after graduation. These are also some of the typical job profiles for a master graduate in human-computer interaction. Besides the other ones that I've shown, they span a variety of areas, but you will find in job banks synonyms. And if you look at the kind of the job descriptions, the kind of skills, those are the skills that are typically covered in a master degree in human factor engineering or interaction design or human-computer interaction. Snapshot here of the data science, for example, internships. This is just recent from our data this past month. Applied data science, as you've already seen in other seminar, is also a great area of in demand from the industry. We have students who had, during COVID, a very successful round of securing online internships, remote internships by various companies, some big, some small, some local, some national, in various positions, from data analytics, intern, data engineering, business analyst, business intelligence, and others. The main point I wanted to make as we look at the prospects and why it's worth to for those who are interested to launch and jump into a graduate degree is that even if the career prospects are excellent, are exceptional, I think there is not a better time to be in the applied computational sciences now because of the situation and the pervasive role of technology in our lives. Besides the great, I think, career prospects, I'm still convinced, based on my experience with graduate students, that the great career outcomes, that great salary upon graduation or signing bonus upon graduation that our students get, is the result or the outcome, but for sure is not the motivation that sustains the hard work and enthusiasm that is necessary to pursue graduate school. And so in my experience working with students, I've seen that the intrinsic motivation is what really sustains the work. And by intrinsic motivation, I mean those factors that have been popularized by books on intrinsic motivation. This is taken from Drive by Daniel Pink, where he says, and I've seen that with graduate students inside our program, that intrinsic motivation really relies on the three pillars that are really embedded in how graduate programs are structured. So the first one is mastery. So while doing the graduate coursework, you perceive that you are kind of learning and becoming a better and better interaction designer, a better and better data analyst, that you are learning. You have a perception that you are mastering more and more the skills. And this is a great motivation, not only to do the work that is required, but also to over-deliver, to go deeper. I often tell my graduate students at orientation that graduate school is really an opportunity to sow deeper, to harvest more. And so the perception of growing and growing the experience during the program is priceless, and is really sustain the work. The other dimension of intrinsic motivation, and that comes before any specific job offer that has been signed, is really the autonomy. That during the program, there is the possibility of choosing elective courses or exploring ideas through a thesis, through applied project, to working in the labs with the faculty, to go into topics that are of interest to the students. This in the picture is an example of a recent group of a team of both human-computer interaction students, data science students, and computer science graduate students, all working together for a hackathon, national hackathon, sponsored by NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technologies. And these students from our programs, they got together, mentored by faculty, and they went on and won 4 rounds of national competition, presenting the idea of a new product that is the possibility of using voice interface devices to help policemen and first responders to access remote databases without leaving the car, without touching the screen, and just streamlining the typical task of first responder. They just won a round of over $100,000 at the Washington DC competition, and one of our faculty told me yesterday that they also won the venture capital round. So these are examples in which students, without being assigned work, proactively work with faculty, explore ideas, and go on a path that can bring them to explore new horizons. The third, I think, aspect of really graduate school motivation that I see that the students really embrace is the notion of purpose, which is the possibility that contributing to a research project or a project like this that I've described, you contribute to a societal benefit, to something that is larger than your lab, something larger than your class, larger than your specific career path. And so these are something that I think the graduate school in our area, but I think it applies to many other areas, have an opportunity to give to students. Talking about the cost of graduate school, it really depends on many aspects, type of institution, location, discipline, etc. But my general take, and of course I'm biased because I work for a state university here in Indiana, is that public universities really offer very good graduate programs at very affordable price. And so typically there are opportunities to offset the cost of a program to assistantships, to scholarship, through financial assistance, and also through internships that are paid during the program. And so this is just a snapshot, of an example of a cost. If somebody asks, okay, what's the cost of a graduate school? For example, in our school, a typical master degree, whether it's in data science or HCI or health informatics, is a 4-semester commitment. If you take 3 courses per semester, which is a full-time, consider a full-time enrollment, you're looking at an in-state tuition of approximately $3,700 per semester. And so, of course, you calculate for 4 semesters. There are also online options for out-of-state students connecting remotely and taking courses remotely, which is higher than around $5,000 per semester. And then, of course, out-of-state options are probably twice that. But consider that there are opportunities to cover maybe for $2,000, $2,500 per semester to receive funding through scholarship, assistantship, hourly work in the lab, or teaching assistantship, or paid internship during the summer that are very well paid. I've been asked to talk briefly about, okay, if I'm really interested to go into a graduate program in the computational sciences, what do I do? So what are the features of a strong master application? I'm sure there are many opinions on this. In my experience, when working with the faculty who review the applications for admission, we always look at various factors. I think that one of the most important one is the personal statement, which is the opportunity for the candidate to write, could be 1 or 2 pages, how you see yourself 2 years from now, and how the master program can help you in your career, in fulfilling your aspirations. So this is very important, that the quality of the personal statement tells a lot about why you want to apply, what you want to do. What is really, what do you see as a value for you? This also helps the faculty to see a possible connection between the research interests of the candidate with the various areas of research that are going on. There are also many other elements. We can talk for hours, but just wanted to mention, GRE. We don't have, for example, a threshold for GRE admission, but we look at GRE as a part of the holistic understanding of writing ability, quantitative ability. We do not use the GRE as the only element to accept or discard the student, but it's part of the mix. Letters of recommendations, either from academia or professional realms, these are important that we look at to understand what people say about the candidate. And then when the candidate's work is already in the broader area of the discipline or in ancillary areas, we look for portfolio, sample of writing, sample of product, sample of project artifacts that the candidate has developed. So the overarching question that the faculty ask when reviewing applicants is, can this candidate succeed in our program? So this is one of the elements. Very quickly, for PhD applications, I think there are similarities. I would say that the big difference is that when we look at a PhD application, it's very important that you present a case of how you are really interested and genuinely interested in the research that the faculty are doing. Because the success of a PhD student really depends on the chemistry between the student and the faculty who are working in the lab in research. And so that's, I think, one aspect besides the letter of recommendation, which are have a heavier importance that really important PhD applications. I want to stop here. I want to take too much time. There could be other questions, but I want to leave you with this quote from the Screwtape Letter from C.S. Lewis. Man can neither make nor retain one moment of time. It all comes to him by pure gift. So graduate school is a very intense commitment when the time is never enough. But it's an opportunity to really aspire, higher, and to use time wisely to explore new horizons of knowledge. So thank you. Wanted to stop here.
Thank you, Davide. So that was really wonderful. I think it was very informative, and I hope we give people some understanding of what it takes to get into the master's or the PhD program. If you have any questions, please feel free to write in the Zoom group chat, and hopefully we'll get some more. Okay, so. One question that while I was doing it that I had was this personal statement or all this, so which are very important for both the master's program and the PhD program. So how does people, so for example, some people can move from they did a bachelor's 3 or 4 years ago, and then they worked on different things, and now they want to go back to, let's say, school and do a master's in human-computer interaction. So, what tips would you give to that person to craft a genuine personal statement that will stand out?
Yeah. So, am I on? Yes. One very simple, advice is really be true to your interest. You can't fake your interest because if you fake your interest, they crumble very, 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 very fast, very rapidly. So if you are interested in a field, either because you have friends or you have people or colleagues who interested you in the field, talk about what interests you in that field and why. And there is always an opportunity to be true to yourself. And if you have a genuine interest, that shines through. Whether the interest came through your work post-bachelor work in an ancillary area, it could be marketing, could be consultancy, could be writing, could be engineering, could be software development, could be any type of work that maybe help you, and this happens a lot in our students, the work that you did after the bachelor made you understand the need or the curiosity, give you the curiosity to really explore that area of the field. And so be true to yourself. So that are what I would say.
Okay, so another question that you have, the one person has, what advice do you give for researching potential graduate school programs beside the obvious? Are there any sites, publication you recommend for learning more about which schools offer which programs?
Yeah, I know there are lots of online portals, meta portals, sites. I think working through personal connection and asking people about it, it's the best way to have a human filter and a very efficient way to seek for relevance. I think the information out there, are a lot. And so just talking to people, Ergon could be an opportunity, and getting pointers to some relevant indicators. So I receive calls, from students who are interested in the master program all the time, and we meet, we provide pointers. Certainly looking at specific either project or researcher, look at their publications. I think this is important, probably more important for the PhD application than for the master applications, but definitely working through the network, working through people. LinkedIn is a great network. There are students used to find out about programs, relevant programs that other colleagues have recommended. And so that's one way.
Okay. So the last question for you, Davide. So besides interest, what other personal character traits are you looking for in the overall application package?
Yeah. So I can talk both for master and PhD, but definitely, when a student is proactive, he shows that he can contribute to, the larger, the larger ecosystem, either of research or the professional community. So people who are actually involved in the profession, who are interested in the research of others, the people who are just interested in things outside themselves. They're outward looking. So if somebody is interested in something, that inspires them, that becomes also somebody who is interested to work with. That's what I find. So proactive interest. When people, for example, talk about the specific work that a faculty are doing, that's a very natural connection, right? And so that's an opportunity either for an interview, it's an opportunity to know more, to discover things together with the students. So there could be many professional characteristics, but I would say proactive, outward looking, genuinely interested in the field and in the research done by the faculty or by other people in the area, in the discipline. These are a good sign, very good sign.
Thank you, Davide. That was really very informative and very thoughtful advice that you gave. Okay, so now I'll take this moment to ask Dan to talk about the MBA program and the applications.
Sure. Thanks for the invitation. I thank my colleague Lorenzo for inviting me to do this. Hi, Lorenzo. Nice to see you. And Rajiv for the invitation. David, that's a hard act to follow, but I am going to talk a little bit about colleges of business, MBAs, other programs. I'm getting old, so when I share a screen, my eyes can't see any of the expressions on anyone's face. So I have some notes I'm going to use to drive the conversation. I would ask for the potential students that are here, if you're able to do so, if you want to turn your cameras back on so I can see your smiles or frowns or wherever you're responding, that would be helpful, but obviously not required. So I want to talk about what it's like to pursue a graduate degree in a college of business setting. And so this is, it overlaps in a fair amount with what David talked about, in that passion and desire and all those things really help drive whether or not where you're going to be successful in life, regardless of field. But colleges of business are unique in a couple ways, and there are a couple of things I want to highlight about the process. The first thing I would emphasize is in the last 10 to 15 years, there's been a proliferation of various types of degrees in the business landscape. Both from quality of institutions, rollout of very low quality online MBAs, for example, and just types of degrees. So if you're considering trying to learn something in the business field, the program I'm in charge of, our full-time MBA program, I'm on brand because I'm a marketing prof. Those programs are very traditional, and that MBA carries a lot of value and a lot of weight, but there's lots and lots of other options. Even within the MBA context, there are new high quality online MBA programs that have been rolled out with third-party partnerships that really help with technology. There are part-time programs, evening full-time programs, hybrid programs, executive programs, and obviously the more traditional full-time program that I'm looking at. So if you're considering an MBA, one of the first questions you want to have that you want to answer yourself is, what kind of MBA experience do you want? Do you want the kind of pseudo undergrad recreated in your 20s or 30s where you're full-time and on campus and not working? Do you want to continue working, which is more and more common? Do you want to be online? Do you want to be in person? How does your partner feel about you going and spending 8, 12, 16 hours a week doing homework and being in class in the evening while still working online, working full-time? So one of the first steps in the decision tree, if you will, is what kind of MBA do you want if you're pursuing an MBA? You don't have to pursue an MBA. Lorenzo, Professor Patelli, is very involved with our master's in accountancy program. That's a really popular program at DU, and you're learning how to be an accountant and You go off and get your CPA pretty typically, and you're doing tax or auditing. Did I get the two groups right, Lorenzo? You're learning how to be an accountant. That's what you're training for. And often those students are younger, sometimes direct out of undergrad. And there are all kinds of other master's degrees. You can get it in the traditional areas of finance, marketing, management, you do real estate, construction management, marketing research, entrepreneurship, innovation, ideation. In the last couple of years, you've seen people start to roll out concentrations or even full degrees focused on sustainability. I do a lot of international marketing, get a master's degree in international business. So, and this is new. When I was just coming out of undergrad, considering my own MBA coursework, considering where I wanted to go, there wasn't this proliferation of master's degrees. But what it allows, and this really aligns with what David was talking about, it allows you to pick your passion. And an MBA is a generalist degree. You're going to sit through a finance class, you're going to sit through an accounting class, even if you're there to study digital media and you really want to learn how to influence purchasing through Instagram, you're going to get that generalist degree. But if you want to, you can get a master's in marketing and go just in that specific route. So that's another step in this decision tree. Do you want to be a generalist or do you want to specialize? In the business world, there's not the same number of PhD programs as there is in comp sci when I was looking earlier today, or information sciences. But there are quality PhD programs. Lorenzo and I both went to quality PhD programs. A lot of what David talked about for a PhD is very similar for a PhD in business. Passion, finding people whose research interests you, forming those relationships beforehand as much as possible, and then during the program. But one of the things that's unique in the College of Business world is we also have what's called a DBA, Doctorate of Business Administration. And we also have just beginning to roll out in the field an executive PhD programs. We just started ours DU 2 years ago. I'll be teaching them an immersive seminar on ANOVA over the weekend. So you do have these executive PhDs and DBAs, and those are more for folks with 15, 20 years of work experience, really strong academic undergrad and graduate records, who maybe want to transition into teaching but aren't looking for a research one path, maybe more of a teaching focused path where they can take their expertise and bring it in to the classroom after they graduate with their doctoral degree. So it's still a doctoral degree. They still get the title. Titles are so important in academia, but it's not a traditional PhD. So that's kind of the gamut of the kind of graduate programs that are offered in a College of Business, So I wanted to give you that, just kind of what it looks like to try to get a graduate degree in business and realize the options are just, there's a plethora with that negative connotation of that word of potential things to look at. So the first thing to consider is what kind of program do you want? And then you need to really research where. One of the things that's especially true for colleges of business is that career is still a regional function. So there, especially as we've rolled out more and more online degrees, if you're getting a degree from University of Denver, it's really great to leverage that in California and in the Rocky Mountain region. If you want to go to New Haven, out on the East Coast, you're not going to find as much of a network, as many graduates with the degree. Colleges of business, if they're not top 25 ranked, really have a regional component to their career outcomes, particularly for MBA and MS students. So you want to think, where do I want to work? Where do I want my network of fellow alums to be? And a lot of people use MBAs as a jumping off point to move to a new part of the country or a new part of the world. You can go to Milan, get a really good degree there, and try to find a job in Italy, right? So there are opportunities that you can really leverage by getting that degree. And at University of Denver, we're about 60% out of state on average for our MBA program, and they all want to stay here. And they're coming here so they can get those networks, those contacts, an internship in Denver, an alum they go out to coffee with in Denver, a mentor in Denver, all those sort of things. So that's, when you're making the selection, it's another key issue is location. And then I have 3 teenagers, and if they were asking me how to pick a graduate program, particularly an MBA program, I would tell them that personally, the most important thing after region and kind of program is career outcomes. We're still academia. We're teaching you how to think strategically, analytically, problem solve, be on teams, et cetera, et cetera. And there's more and more evidence that companies hire for those soft skills. But in the end, you're coming to learn finance. You're coming to learn accounting. You're getting a very set marketing. You're getting a very set skill set that should be linked very clearly to career outcomes. And I'm proud to say our MBA program has set records for career outcomes in the last couple of years. And so I would be looking at percentage of students with the job in 3 months, percentage of students with a job in 6 months, what's their average salary, what's the range, what kind of jobs are they getting. And business school is not Davida's field. We do not have 100% placement for every single area. So you need to figure out where you do want to study and how that relates to those outcomes. And if they're an accredited school, if they're part of what's called the AACSB, the American Academy of Colleges and Schools of Business, they have to participate in a career organization that has an even longer acronym, so I won't share it. And so that data will be public. It should be on their website. It should be part of the rankings that you can find, Bloomberg Business Week, US News being the two most popular. So you can find that career data. It shouldn't be hidden because it's part of being in this overall regulatory board, to sound like a bureaucratic faculty member for a second. So you really want to check on that and make sure you understand how that relates to what you want to do. Because there are certain schools, Northwestern, their MBA is chugging and churning out folks that are going to work in marketing. NYU, go get a job in Wall Street. That's why you go get an MBA from NYU. Harvard's Harvard. You can do whatever the hell you want because you have Harvard when you're done, but not many people get into Harvard, right? So you need to understand the specifics of whichever school you're looking at. And do realize that, just looking at my notes, there are a couple of other small things on the edge about picking programs, and then I want to talk about the application process. How big's the student body? What's the experience like? Are you going to go see a bunch of football games? Are you going to be in a small town with all the fun that comes from that? How active is the student body? What does the student body do for fun? How big is the program? Some MBA programs will be 400, 600 students. Ours is 60 this year. Like, how big do you want it to be? How important is that for you? And then what's the network like? What's the regional and national reputation? Do they focus a lot on leadership and soft skills? Do they do coaching? A big differentiator for a lot of programs is global travel. Is that extra money? And I'll get to money in a second. Do they have those components? So there's a couple on the margin things to also consider as you consider a graduate program. Rankings are a thing in the business school world, so look into them, but get into the details. And you're going to look and you're going to find they correlate a lot with just overall prestige. There have been scandals before where schools don't even have like a law program, but they get ranked top 10 just because of their name. So look into the details and really dig deep, because there's some really good information in rankings, and I think rankings are important, and they're a great way to do some secondary data. Once you figure all that out and you figure out the 5, 7, 10 schools that you're really looking into, there are really 3 buckets for admissions decisions. And I say this having gone to large conferences full of folks who all do a lot of selection and application stuff. So this isn't just my perspective, it's kind of the perspective in the industry. First is just academics. What was your GPA? Where'd you go to school? What'd you study? How'd you do on the GMAT if that's required, or the GRE if they'll allow you to submit it. But do know that increasingly in the last 10 to 15 years, though that bucket has become less important as schools try to bring in more diverse backgrounds, both from a diversity and inclusiveness perspective, but also from a work, age, other perspectives. But that's still part of it. And if you have issues there, if you can deal with those issues in your narratives that are usually required, that helps a lot. If you don't, that's a huge red flag. Second, depending on what profile of student, some master's programs in business are really just looking for right out of undergrad. But if you're looking for a more traditional MBA, work experience in some MS programs, work experience is equal, if not more, to academic experience. And that work experience can be really unique. We let in and are excited to recruit and let in veterans, folks from the Peace Corps, I personally love elementary school teachers because they can handle anything because they taught elementary school. So it doesn't just have to be that you worked in finance on Wall Street or worked at an advertising agency. If you have a new unique background, leverage that. Talk about that, how that's leading into your passion, how that relates to why you want to get the degree. And for a lot of schools, that goes a long way. Third is fit. And this is that desire component, that drive component that Davida was talking about. And Davida, Daniel Pink belongs in colleges of business. You're not allowed to use him, man. That's our curriculum. But yeah, the drive stuff is fantastic, and it's really true. If someone has great academics and a really good work experience, but they're kind of a jerk in their interview, and we're not sure why why they want to be here, we don't accept them. It's not worth it. Business schools are all teams all the time. And if you let in a student who's not great on a team, you're going to be dealing with that in the cohort for the rest of the time they're there. So it's really important when you do your interview to treat it like an interview for your dream job, and be your best self, and really come off with that passion and drive for the topic, for the university, show that you'll be an active and excited student and alum. Two last thoughts as I wrap up. David, I mentioned costs, and cost is really true, particularly in-state. In-state public schools typically will be lower cost than private schools. And you have to just balance networks, prestige, other things that might be involved. But if you're looking at cost, and cost is your primary driver, then if you're in-state, then public schools are, in almost every case, cheaper for graduate study in a college of business. That said, if you're out of state, check that. And then no, not casting aspersions on public schools, but public schools are able to hide fees in a way that private schools can't. So I know one of our local competitors has about 12 grand more added to their tuition. That's in fees and things that are not part of their public sticker price. So just make sure you understand the overall cost and what you're getting for that cost. Do you get global travel? Do you get a larger alumni record? Things like that. And then lastly, universities, even pre-COVID, have been in a unique context heading into some enrollment demand concerns. One of the values of our college, we focus on ethics and transparency. To be transparent, we want students right now. Scholarships for private institutions have been going up. Scholarships for public institutions have been going up. Undergrad, grad, at every level. And COVID is going to basically ensure that that's going to continue to happen. It's really a buyer's market right now. So if you're considering going to grad school, this is arguably the best time in the last 20, 25 years. We want students, we want qualified students. Most universities are holding the line on quality, but we want those students in our classrooms. So I strongly encourage you, no matter what the field is, to really consider applying to graduate school. If you've been on the fence, now's the time. You'll get the most money, you'll get the most attention. It's really the time to make that leap if you're ready. So that's all I had planned. I wish I had had a fancy PowerPoint, but at least a couple of you turned on your cameras so I got to see some smiles. So thank you again, Lorenzo and Razid, for the invitation to talk.
Thank you, Dan. It was really great to hear your very energetic conversation about MBA programs. So let's see, do we have any questions? Okay, we'll just give people time to catch up. So let's have a discussion. So it's a conversation that both David and you can like pitch in. Is in terms of people now with the current reality of COVID and many people either being furloughed and now they're trying to get back to a different career trajectory, different career path. What advice would you give them if they're unsure whether they want to go to grad school or not? In terms of like, is it a good option for them to think like, okay, take a break for a bit and go to grad school, up the skill, and then jump into like newly minted programs?
David, do you mind if I go first and you go second?
Go.
I would go back to actually what David has said, and I reiterated around passion. If you've always known in your gut you want to go get a graduate degree in a certain topic, go. If you're going because of COVID and employment situations, you're not going to have the drive you need to get through the program. And it's going to come out in your interview process. We certainly had students who applied and we asked them why they wanted to go to graduate school, and they basically said COVID, and that's not enough. But if this is one of those moments where, to use a really bad cliche, God closes a door and opens a window, and you've always been waiting to jump out that window, then jump out the window. And that can be part of your narrative and explanation.
Yeah, I fully agree. Now, most of the internships I've seen among graduate students are online internship, as I mentioned, because even those graduates who then land the job, they start remotely. And so even learning courses, taking courses online for a graduate school is now accepted by the students as kind of the mode that also is aligned to the way they do internship, the way that then are asked to work online. And so even, doing imagine to do a collaborative design thinking project online. It's tough. Before people were struggling, now there are more tools, students are adapting. So there is a lot of creativity and adaptation in kind of making the best out of the situation. And students, especially graduate students, more than undergraduate, are recognizing that through the surveys that we ran, that they understand the value of that, because they see that this is also what the job market is looking at. In terms of timing, when is the good time to do? Well, I think in time of crisis, it's always great. It's always important to go deeper and to learn more. And so, because to reskill, to reinvent, to reflect. And so, as time of crisis help us reflect, a way to reflect is really to study. And so, I agree with Dan, everything you said. That the crisis is not the reason, but could be one of the nudge, if you want.
Great. Okay, so we have one question is, I think this is probably to Dan. Why is regionality so important now that most people needs to work or study online? But
That's a great question. Guisi, did I say that even close to correctly? That's a fantastic question. And there was this idea when we initially moved to start to do online that degrees would travel and you could have students from all over the country, and that you'd have these national or even international degrees. And that's true for some of the online programs that are through top 25 schools. But as they start to look at career data, and as I mentioned, we do have an organization that's responsible for capturing all of our career data. They find about a 500-mile career effect in general. We have some areas of a little more density and maybe a little bit bigger, some areas without as much density. There's not a lot of jobs outside of Kansas City until you get to St. Louis. There's some places. But they find that from a career perspective, it's a real regional brand, and it's a real regional network for most schools. So University of Denver is a top 50 undergrad, top 75 to 80 graduate school program. We're pretty prestigious within our region and with alums in California. We don't draw a lot of students from outside of those two places, maybe a little Minnesota, a little bit Kansas City, but we don't have a lot of students coming to us from New York City. We don't have a lot of alums in New York City. And that profile is pretty consistent for most business colleges. So Indiana University, where David is at, the Kelly School, I know some faculty there, I know some graduates from there. They get hired in Chicago, in St. Louis, in Indy, some in Ohio, some down south, but they're not getting a lot of hires in Miami or Dallas. They have more of a regional footprint. And as I mentioned, business degrees are career-focused degrees. If you're going to get a graduate degree other than a PhD in business, you're getting core business skills to equal to very specific business jobs. So if you don't want to get a job in the region of the business school you're going to, then you're going to have real issues, because that's why you're going back to school, so you can pivot to that new career path. So does that answer the question?
Great. Okay. Let's see. We are almost out of time. We are on top of the hour. If there is no other question, then I think we can really thank our speakers. And I think Dan and Davide have done a wonderful job in giving a very nice overview. And I mean, and frankly speaking, this is an ideal time to talk about this, because some of the application deadlines are coming up in many schools. So if people are interested in applying, so now is the time to start thinking and doing all sorts of things. So,
if I can just say one last wrap-up thought, no matter where you're applying or what kind of program you're applying to, my information was shared. Please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to mentor or help or provide guidance, or know someone somewhere who can play that role if I'm not a good fit for it. So it would be fantastic if I got a couple follow-up emails and got to help some folks from this.
great.
I'm here.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, it will be really wonderful. I think people will definitely reach out. So, okay. So thank you, David. Thank you, Dan, for your contributions, and thank you everybody. So this session is recorded, so it will be available for people to view later, and then I will follow up with an email with all the contact information for both David and Dan, so that you can reach out to them. Thanks. Have a great evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Bye. Thank you.